The Nevada desert was an interesting place to be in the 1950s.
Night falls swiftly at Desert Rock, the tension and the excitement mounting.
On a clear night in 1951, US Army troops from the 11th Airborne Division excitedly took their seats in the desert just outside Las Vegas.
H hour minus 2 minutes. Minus 2 minutes.
They would soon be the first group of soldiers to witness a nuclear explosion.
You are here to participate in an atomic maneuver.
The soldiers sat on the desert sand, their backs to the bomb, so they weren't blinded by the flash. You can actually see the flash reflected on their backs. Oh, I just said don't look at it. Now, it seems a little counterintuitive for an army to drive a bunch of soldiers to watch a nuclear explosion at close range in the desert. But the reason they'd been brought along was to prepare them for what it would be like to encounter atomic weapons on the battlefield.
You can live through an atomic attack, and by taking common sense precautions, live to fight another day.
They didn't want the soldiers to be shocked by the shockwave, which should be arriving right about now. Oh, crikey. Tests like this prompted the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists, a group set up by Albert Einstein, J. Robert Oppenheimer, and other scientists who worked on the development of nuclear weapons, to launch something they called the Doomsday Clock. It was a visual representation of how close they thought humanity was to a man-made global catastrophe. Initially, it was set at 7 minutes to midnight, but a few years later, by the mid-1950s...
the Doomsday Clock was advanced to 2 minutes to midnight.
Now, as of the year 2026...
Humanity has not made sufficient progress on the existential risks that endanger us all. We thus move the clock forward. This is the closest the world has ever been to midnight.
The thing that interests me about this is the clock has been telling us that we are seconds from global catastrophe for nearly 80 years.
Ironically, the Doomsday Clock as an image does the opposite to what its intent would be.
This is Steven Pinker, the internationally renowned cognitive psychologist and science writer. He really doesn't like this clock, particularly because the point of it is to make us think that we can act to stop Armageddon.
A clock just ticks down. Unless you smash the clock, it's going to keep going. So the clock is really a rather awful metaphor for the idea that our future is in our hands.
And yet the clock has been wound back on occasion. It's kind of like adjusting your clock back an hour after daylight saving time ends, except you adjust it backwards 17 minutes whenever the Cold War ends.
Tear down this wall.
It's just a few seconds to midnight, and yet we've had no nuclear attacks, no World War III. In fact, in the 8 decades the clock has been running, for the most part, things are kind of better than ever. Extreme poverty across the globe has dropped by 40%. Child mortality has dropped from 1 in 4 children dying before they reach 15 to 1 in 20. Global life expectancy has risen by nearly 30 years. The world has objectively become a much better place to live, and yet tick-tock, doom continues to approach.
They switched the definition of doomsday, so it was no longer thermonuclear war, but now it was overpopulation and resource shortages and climate change. So they found some new reasons that we're all doomed.
And look, yes, I can sense you shouting at the screen, what about climate change? Where's that line on your ridiculously oversized positivity chart? And it's a good question and a good point. Here is the annual global temperature anomaly line. I'll even make it thick and spiky. When I look at that line, I also feel that serious sense of doom. And I'm not alone.
Anxiety is running high around the impact of climate change.
Climate change is here, it is terrifying, and it is just the beginning.
In the future, it's going to be even worse. Earth is not going to be livable for us.
The future feels ominous. And yet, as we've shown over the last 4 episodes, we're generally really bad at predicting what the future is going to look like. Is this any different? I'm Matt Bevan, and from If You're Listening, this is Black Swans. So, in this, the final episode, I want to tackle doom and figure out why, despite our constant feeling that it's coming, it still hasn't. The thing that started us on this journey was this.
Hello there, hello. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, John, I can hear you.
Are you getting me loud and clear?
Yes, loud and clear.
I hope so. I'll have to get on now anyway. I haven't time to wait, so I'll assume that somehow or other you've tuned in.
Yeah, that's right. He can't actually hear me. He is in 1959, and I can only make time flow in one direction. John Horner's letter is one of 20 letters to the unborn recorded by ABC Radio in Adelaide, addressed to us in the future. As John was writing, the Doomsday Clock was set at 2 minutes to midnight, and like many of the letter writers, he was unsure whether anyone would even exist in the future to open the letters.
Once upon a time, it was difficult to kill more than one person with one weapon at one pop. By 1945, the number had improved to 100,000. Today, it is said to run into millions, and it seems that a global war could very well wipe us all out in a very short time.
Adelaide poet Max Harris expected that we in the future would look back on 1959 with bemusement.
We 1959ers live in the shadow of the hydrogen bomb and some world-destroying war of nuclear fission. It's an uneasy, strange sort of life we lead back here.
At the time, people all over the world were truly terrified of the prospect of nuclear war.
Where are you from?
Originally from New York, but I'm living in Sydney now.
Why did you come here in the first place?
Well, our main reason for coming to Australia was to get away from the pressure of nuclear business and the Cold War.
Max Harris thought that the only way disaster could be averted would be through some kind of global brainwashing program.
The situation, as I understand it, global peace and international harmony will be completely attained by the year 2000. The price of this great and ultimate good has been the faculty of criticism in every individual. You say it's a small price to pay for the world's peace. Set against the possibility of a world-destroying bomb, your argument's irrefutable.
And yet, here we are. Most of us still unbrainwashed, at least as far as I know, and not victims of a nuclear war. Some would argue that the fact that we're all still here is just down to luck. After all, there are a lot of hands hovering over a lot of big red buttons. The Americans have theirs.
Rehearsing World War III at a missile base in South Dakota.
Enable switch, enable. Enable.
And the Russians have one too.
To answer nuclear attack by destroying America's leadership, military, and economy in one massive obliterating blow.
At any moment, missiles could be on their way.
Shall be the policy of this nation to regard any nuclear missile launched from Cuba against any nation in the Western Hemisphere as an attack by the Soviet Union on the United States, requiring a full retaliatory response upon the Soviet Union.
And look, it's no wonder the letter writers were worried. There have been a number of close calls. 3 years after our letters were written, there was a week-long standoff over whether the Soviet Union should be allowed to station nuclear missiles in Cuba.
It'll be the most frightening week the world has known since the end of World War II.
On the 27th of October 1962, a US Navy ship dropped a number of small explosives into the water near a Soviet submarine in an attempt to get it to surface. The captain thought that World War III had started and began preparing to launch a nuclear torpedo. His executive officer, Vasily Arkhipov, stopped him. 2 other close calls seem to have been caused by the Aurora Borealis.
The Northern Lights, the Aurora Borealis.
The same day as the Russian submarine almost launched a nuclear torpedo, an American spy plane pilot was trying to navigate his way across the Arctic using the stars, but he couldn't see them because of the Aurora. He ended up over Siberia, almost triggering a dogfight between Russian and American fighter jets, but he escaped Soviet airspace before being intercepted. Another close call in 1995 was somehow also caused by the Aurora Borealis.
This is the rocket that sent Moscow into a spin.
A Norwegian research rocket launched to study the Northern Lights was mistaken for a ballistic missile by the Soviet early warning system.
The panic in Moscow sent shockwaves through Western capitals.
Russian President Boris Yeltsin said he opened the black suitcase, which is carried with him at all times and has communications equipment inside, which can be used to order a nuclear strike. But he decided not to use it. The US president also has a briefcase like this.
Wherever the president is, the trigger of nuclear policy, the briefcase, is always near, containing not a button, but the day's go codes, which are supposed to offer him a variety of nuclear wars to fight.
What happens at a state dinner between Russia and the US? Are they all sitting around chatting amicably while both briefcase guys sit awkwardly in opposing corners? Oh, wait. I just had an amazing idea for a romance novel. The two briefcase guys exchange glances across a nuclear summit and fall in love. Sorry, I'm getting sidetracked. Both sides have seen their share of false alarms, but have always identified them just in time and refused to retaliate.
And it really is sheer dumb luck that we managed to have survived all those decades since Hiroshima and Nagasaki without a major new nuclear explosion occurring in a city somewhere in the world.
That's certainly the impression you get by watching movies. Vasily Arkhipov, the Soviet submarine officer who stopped the launch of that nuclear missile in 1962, has been portrayed in Hollywood film adaptations by both Denzel Washington and Liam Neeson. Nuclear close calls have been one of the most common shortcuts to drama in movies, TV, and books for decades. Post-nuclear apocalypse fiction is one of the most popular genres out there, and I assume we all felt a chill go up our spine when we saw Oppenheimer. But while watching old news coverage of this issue, Mutually Assured Attraction, perfect name for the romance novel. Oh, you can push my button. Sorry, I should be serious about this. While watching old news coverage, I came across a really interesting perspective from the strategic studies expert Dr. Jeffrey Lee Williams in 1981.
Well, I think there's an obsession with the kind of impact that any kind of war would have on society. And given developments in nuclear technology, this is a well-founded, rational fear.
So fear of war is rational, but...
Undoubtedly it's been exaggerated because the Western powers have developed theories of deterrence. And to deter war, you maximise the impact that war would have, or at least you create the impression that war would be of a disastrous character.
I might actually use this moment to return to the safety of my basement studio. So, part of the theory of deterring nuclear war is that you make everyone so terrified of it that nobody would ever actually press the button. You create a ridiculously big nuclear arsenal and then tell everyone how terrible it would be if anyone ever used that nuclear arsenal, therefore making it very unlikely that it will ever actually be used. Fear is part of the system. The less we fear it, the more likely it is to happen, and vice versa. The very existence of the Doomsday Clock makes it less likely that it will ever reach midnight, at least in theory. Let's look at this theory on a smaller scale.
20 years ago, computer memory limits forced programmers to shorten the year stamp to 2 numbers. But come 2000, computers won't understand 00. They'll stop.
Do you remember this? The threat of the Millennium Bug?
Anything with a date timer is at risk. Airport controls, traffic lights, the power supply, payrolls, the office lift.
The experts were very convinced that at midnight on the 1st of January 2000, the world's computers would go haywire.
Type 00 into your computer, press enter. I dare you. What happens? It stops working.
And governments around the world took it very seriously.
It is a complex test that requires us all to work together.
Worldwide, Y2K bug preparations have cost several $100 billion.
And then when the clock struck midnight and the new millennium began...
There were no massive blackouts, no planes falling from the sky, no nuclear meltdowns.
Learned that we did have a cash register that refused to process receipts in Okinawa.
A lot of people thought the whole thing had been a scam.
I think a lot of people made a lot of money out of it all.
We had the emergence of what I term the Y2K entrepreneur.
dedicated to building this thing up as much as they could, milking it for the maximum that they possibly could.
Computer analyst Graham Bond said that while the problem was real, it could have been dealt with much more cheaply if there had been less hype.
Instead of these things being treated in a sensible way by the people that operated and understood the equipment, those people got sidelined, bring in the external consultants, and vast amounts of money were expended.
But here's the question. Was fear of disaster a key reason that the disaster was averted? Without fear of nuclear apocalypse or climate disaster or AI going rogue and killing us all, would we be making those things more likely to happen? Strategic Studies Professor Geoffrey Lee Williams didn't think so. He said that he thought exaggerating the threat of nuclear war was a mistake.
And in the end, it becomes self-defeating because it makes any kind of provision by way of protective measures for the population seem irrational, unnecessary, even dangerous.
So if nuclear Armageddon is inevitable, what's the point in taking actions to prevent it? Stephen Pinker has been thinking about this for a long time. Stephen, is overstating the risk of doom more likely to make us give up?
I think that really is a danger. If you pile on the doomsday scenarios, if nuclear war doesn't wipe us all out, then climate change will, and if that doesn't, then it'll be rogue artificial intelligence. At some point, people would just say, to hell with that, if we're doomed, may as well enjoy life now. Eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die.
Bill Gates, who I know is a big fan of yours, Stephen, recently made a lot of headlines with some comments on climate change. He said that while climate change will have serious consequences, particularly for people in the poorest countries, it will not lead to humanity's demise. People will be able to live and thrive in most places on Earth for the foreseeable future. Do you think that statements like this, even if they are accurate, undermine the efforts to decarbonise the economy?
It's at least as likely that people will be more receptive to decarbonisation. It's not a question of whether we're doomed, which is not to say that we can relax. We definitely can. Bad things will happen unless we decarbonise. But we've got to adjust the balance of decarbonisation so it doesn't keep poor people in extreme poverty.
Bill Gates' argument is effectively that preventing people in developing countries from improving their standard of living using fossil fuels would be more harmful to them than the expected effects of climate change. And he points out that we're already on our way to dramatically decreasing our emissions without dramatically changing our lifestyle.
Matt Bevan joins us now from Brisbane.
In my career, I've had some role in covering 18 elections and referendums, and as you can see, they've taken their toll. I don't make predictions, at least not publicly, but if you had forced me to make one a couple of months before each one of those votes, I would have got it right 10 out of 18 times. Basically, only marginally better than flipping a coin. And yet somehow I still cover elections professionally. Very weird. Among our letter writers, several made predictions about something that was within their own field of expertise. Professor Norval Morris, a world-famous criminologist, foresaw the end of the use of prisons as a punishment for crimes.
I see it. Prison as a punishment started in 1790. It's clearly on the decline now and seems likely, apart from a few vestigial remains, to disappear before 1990.
Dr. Brian Elliott, the great champion of Australian literature, predicted that the royal family would decide to leave London for greener pastures.
And would it be so surprising that the new royal residence should be situated in that delightful, beautiful and highly cultured metropolis, uncontaminated by any intrusion of sordid or commercial industrial pettiness, Canberra, the nation's, nay, the Commonwealth's capital?
Alex Ramsey, the architect of modern Adelaide, predicted that things would only get better in the future.
In my lifetime, and it's not been all that long as yet, the strides science and engineering have made make it seem quite certain that unless we blow ourselves up for political reasons, we shall, by the end of this century, have no more economic troubles.
Well, we do still have a few economic troubles, but on average, there's never really been a better time to be a human than right now. It's just that a lot of the time, it doesn't feel like it.
A lot of progress is that you refer to is invisible. It either consists of things that haven't happened, that therefore don't make the news, like parts of the world that are at peace. When there's a war, it's news. When there's nothing happening, it's almost by definition not news.
And Stephen Pinker says that part of that is because we don't really report on it.
Also, some of the progress that's taken place creeps up a few percentage points a year, such as the decline in extreme poverty, the increase in longevity. There's a gravitas, a kind of seriousness that comes with pointing out the negative. You seem more like a prophet.
Of the 20 people the ABC asked to write a letter in 1959, just one was a woman. In her letter, Ellen Christensen talked about the two types of predictions about the future. One epitomised by people like George Orwell,
who describe your age in terms of mechanisation, standardisation, exploitation and annihilation. Well, if the Orwell point of view is correct, you won't be here to find the letter.
And the other by people who predict a labour-free utopia,
in which no work is done by man. It is the age of automation. Machines make machines and work them.
But Ellen Christensen said that she wasn't really interested in what the circumstances of our life were.
I'm not interested in the material man-made world in which you live. That's ephemeral and immaterial. I am interested in what sort of person, what sort of individual you are, in how you feel when you're alone with yourself. On the personal side, in any period of history, the experience of life is surely much the same.
Her idea was that being a human doesn't really change all that much.
I have friends amongst the Trojan women and the Canterbury Pilgrims, though they're much further away from me in time and external circumstances than you are.
The thing is, I am certain that Ellen Christensen is right. The reason for that is that we've asked a number of Australian luminaries to give us some letters to file away with the ones from 1959.
Hello, I'm Geraldine Doog, bringing you a letter for the future.
G'day, Dr. Carl here, with a letter to the future, to our dear descendants at the end of the 21st century.
My dear great-great-grandchildren, your welfare is constantly on my mind.
I think of you often, you whose face I'll never see, whose name I'll never know, whose voice I'll never hear.
I try to imagine life in 2090 for my much-loved young and carefree grandchildren.
And the extraordinary thing about them is how similar they are to the ones that we dug up from the past.
Australia will become, I predict, a leader in our region, of whom we can be proud.
Towards the end of this century, you'll say, Jacinta, darling, please stop feeding dark energy and dark matter into the black hole and come in and have lunch because, thanks to the discoveries of physics, we are like gods. And after lunch, let's teleport to London.
One massive change in the 2026 version of this project is who is participating in it. 67 years ago, all of the writers were white and only one was a woman. Today,
my future child, if you do exist, I hope that by your time our world has learned to choose better.
Jingi wala nungali jugan, jugo nungali gunaga. Banjalang wijibu waibu.
We are fed a constant stream of other people's thoughts. Everything hums at once, drowning out the quieter hum of the land. But even the quiet of the bush carries a faint electric tremor.
Many of our letter writers were, like most of us, worried about the era we live in.
The COVID-19 pandemic, political polarisation, a multiplicity of wars, the pervasive influence of tech companies, and the erratic executive orders of the US President have undermined our sense of peace and steady progress.
I see a world trembling between hope and despair. We faced ecological collapse, widening inequality, and a loss of faith in shared truth.
Much like their 1959 counterparts, most of our writers were concerned about the future.
In my youth, I have been so incredibly lucky. I have seen the Great Barrier Reef, skied through mountains of snow. I have swum in oceans alive with colour and hiked through forests alive with birdsong. And it terrifies me that by the time you're old enough to ask about these things, I don't know what will remain.
We scrape mountains bare for cobalt and lithium. We pump rivers through cooling towers to soothe data centres the size of stadiums.
My personal estimate is that in your time, the global average temperature will be 3 degrees above the 1850 to 1900 average, with major consequences of bushfires and extreme weather conditions. I wish you good fortune in your adaptation to these conditions.
I know you wear the scars that we carved into you, and yet, despite this, you are here. You learned to move differently through the world. You are the storm we always feared and the dawn we always dreamed, a sapling grown from a scorched earth. You claw your way back from the edge.
But they weren't only worried about climate change.
The thing that I just cannot begin to conceive is the role of artificial intelligence in your world. If it continues to develop at the explosive rate of the last few years, artificial superintelligence and indeed the singularity will have been reached many decades before you were born.
There will be a rise in white supremacy, and the only way to combat this is to defend. Defend hard, and to not be afraid to speak up.
The world's richest and most powerful people insist a machine with a mind like ours waits just beyond the next upgrade, because there's profit in pretending it might.
But they were all genuinely hopeful for the future.
I hope our world now prioritises life over money, beauty over greed, culture and history over extraction and exploitation.
You are the kind that insists the world can change, that refuses to stop until it does. You see devastation and you act. You see injustice and you rage. You see beauty and you protect it. You know that hope is not passive, that courage is not optional.
If you are listening, I need you to know, feel, and honour that all of us here in the Dreaming are here with you. We are protecting you, looking after you, just like my nan and my great-grandparents do that right now.
Self-driving cars will be ubiquitous in your time, and brain implants that enable the mute to talk and the paralysed to walk will be common.
Yes. And then the last big discovery we have to make, and there'll be more, is of course the missing dimensions of the universe. If you could jump into a higher dimension and fold space and bring those two bits together, you could vanish here and reappear over there in 0 time, no matter what the distance.
I encourage you to believe that there is always a better way. And even in a world dominated by artificial intelligence and social media, personal initiative will be rewarded. Please direct your efforts not merely to earning income, but also to helping to improve the state of your society, your friends and family.
When you think of us, your ancestors, forgive our failings, but carry forward our longing that the human story, for all its pain, may be rich in compassion and justice. I believe in you.
And you know what? The kookaburras will still compete with the magpies, as they are in my garden as I'm composing these thoughts. And they will, I hope, for you too. I do hope a lot of you are still gardening.
The black swan phenomenon basically makes predicting the future impossible. I can't tell you what it's going to be like in 2027, let alone 2090. But I think Ellen Christensen is right. While black swans can radically change the circumstances around you, being a human is always the same.
What we make of life depends always on the same factors and our reactions to them. On nature, man, God and fate, and on the extent of our own talents, skill, energy, courage and generosity.
And who could have predicted that?